I want to say to all the fans of WLW, y'all keep on supporting this organization because they're going to be the next big thing.
Welcome, everyone, to World League Wrestling Amplify. I'm CT Harrison, along with my broadcast partner, Art. Martin Kadich.
Who's that guy?
I affectionately refer to as old, what's his name?
Yeah. How's it going, man?
Well, so much for kayfabe. WLW Amplify is brought to you by some of our great sponsors of World League Wrestling. Jim Chineri Ford, Jim Chineri Chevrolet, Impact Digital Designs, CT Harrison Business Solutions, as well as Traveling East Productions. A lot going on this week in wrestling.
It's been a real good week for wrestling.
Right. You got, well, first of all, here on the show today, later here in just a few minutes, we will have the one and only superstar Steve. Yeah.
That's right.
That'll be interesting.
It's always fun.
Yeah. And you got what? Okay, the Revival shows up on AEW.
There is that, but now they've said they have no interest in fighting the Young Bucks, which
We'll
know
see.
it's got to be different than that.
Oh, come on. They've been building to that for how long now on social media and Twitter? Have they been like going back and forth doing their thing?
You never know. I mean, you just got, if you're Cody Rhodes, you got to worry because,
If you're Cody Rhodes, you book it.
I'm just saying, what if they heard him saying that all that
Actually,
time?
I would wait until they could actually have an arena full of people and then book that one because that people will pay to see that. I'd pay to
blow
see
the top off
Right.
the place. Yeah.
Right. What else is going on? Matt Riddle's getting called up SmackDown.
I think he's going to do well too. It's a good place to prove himself. Maybe we could see Braun Strowman versus Matt Riddle in the future.
I just don't like the barefoot thing. I get it, but
I liken it to Kevin Von Erich always wrestled barefoot. There's quite a few guys out there. Jimmy Snuka.
I know.
It's a choice.
Okay. Tell him it's a choice when he gets staph infection. What else is going on? We have brand new women's tag team champions.
And honestly,
It'd be what? SmackDown tag team champions.
Before they won the title, I didn't really want to see them win. But after they won the title and they got backstage and acting all silly, I love that. I thought that was funny.
Oh, yeah, they made fun of previously when there was a whole deal about them getting upset when they lost the titles to the Iconics, I believe.
That's right.
And said backstage that they were back there threw themselves on the floor crying and throwing a hissy fit and everything. And then they made fun of it by saying, oh, now that we have the titles, let's take pictures like that. Great. That's what you do. That's entertainment right there.
They're starting to... All the way around, it seems like the shows that are running are starting to hit a stride where they're performing for the TV.
They're starting to,
and it makes it a lot easier to watch.
AEW started, they're the ones that started putting their performers around the ring, and then WWE decided that they would do that too, and when they did, they put up the plexi like a hockey arena type situation.
Just like the boards on, and nobody's been hit through them yet.
Which I don't understand. If you're going to put those up, then use them. Use them like you would a ring post or something. But I don't understand the plexi thing because they're still back behind the plexiglass all bunched together and hugging and touching and less than 6 foot. So what's the plexi actually doing?
Well, it's another tool you can use, at least if you're one of the performers.
But they're not using it. That's the point.
Well,
so now it has no purpose.
There's a build-up.
Come on. There's a build-up storyline with a wall?
Sure. Why not?
No, come on.
Why not?
What is this, the 80s?
Hey, you never know. There can be build-up around anything if you do it right.
Sure. I got to bring this up. There we go. Now I can see everything that's going on. What else is going on? What else is going on? Let's see.
Well, I was impressed with the matches that Jungle Boy and Cody put on.
Oh, I saw that.
I was also impressed with Colt Cabana versus Chris Jericho.
It's a different Colt Cabana than we've seen.
He didn't come in there to play around against Le Champion. or own, or however you want to say it. I have horrible accents.
You do. Who's on here? Let's see. Austin. Austin's on here. Austin Mulatalo. And, of course, Sarge is here. Ronnie's here. Hey, guys. We see you.
Austin says, what about Drake Maverick winning his contract to 205 Live, which I think it's a good thing. You know, they're building around him, and that's always a good thing with somebody. You let them show themselves, let them do what they can do.
Yeah, I guess, did you see the tweets and stuff from Leo Rush?
No, I did not. I've been staying off of social media best I can.
Well,
it's a struggle.
It was more along the lines of he didn't like the fact that he kind of made fun, I guess, or put light or something. I don't know. I don't pay attention to Leo Rush all that much, but something about how he didn't like the storyline because it was too close to home and people lost their jobs, and how is that a storyline kind of a thing, and how could you do that kind of a thing, and sour grapes, I guess. I don't know.
That's true. I mean, you can feel like that too.
What is Drake Maverick? Drake, he's entertaining.
You have Matt Riddle in the same week, being accused of saying people were burying him when he was really making a statement saying that, it's up to him and his efforts as to whether he gets buried or not. There's many different ways you can feel about things like that, and I like positive better than negative.
And also, I heard here we saw that it looks like World League Wrestling, we're going to get back to training.
That's right. I'm excited. I mean, I'm excited and fearful because, the time spent away is time spent away, and you're not doing those things. And it's hard to even know if you can keep going sometimes. So it'll be nice to get back in there, start doing what I do.
You've been reffing there how long now?
4 years.
4 years. Senior referee.
Well, in more ways than one, yeah.
Of course, you've got, unfortunately, well, I won't say unfortunately because he went off to chase the dream. Richard White left us.
Yes.
And Elaney Harley, who is who's training actually at the Race Wrestling Academy, has taken up the helm and done really an amazing job as a referee.
Great. I mean, that I watch her up there, and honestly, I feel like there's things she does that I could do better, and it makes me want to do better.
Right.
She's a dedicated young woman.
Yeah.
I believe she'll be in that squared circle at some point, facing off against another female or anybody else who'd like to try and challenge her. Honestly, I mean, she's not scared.
Who? I don't know. I'd be anxious to see. I'd be interested to see who steps up to the plate when that time comes. We get to see our Young Lions division continue.
That's, I love working those matches. Those young men, they keep me on my toes. Not that the guys that's been around for a while don't, but it's just a different kind of keeping me on my toes. I'll say it that way.
Mm-hmm. What was your favorite match to ref?
My favorite match that I ever refed? Wow, that's tough. So many, especially like in recent memory, because I have to have a short memory as a referee. You got to move on past things. So it's like, in recent memory, it was really great getting to ref the debut of Colton. Him and Leland put on a great match. Super proud about reffing the title match between John Webb and Derek Stone.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there's a lot. Scott Steiner and Kyle Roberts versus Stephen Espy.
Right. Well, speaking of Stephen Espy, on the phone right now, former World League Wrestling Heavyweight Champion and former Tag Team Champion, Superstar Steve.
How's it going?
Are you there, Steve?
Yeah, it seems like I can't hear
How are you?
Can't hear him.
But yeah,
Can you hear me?
there's a lot of matches that I've reffed, a lot with Steve involved.
Uh-huh.
I was actually going to bring that up with Steve today is like, you know, Steve was there for my welcome to wrestling moment.
For your welcome to wrestling.
That's right. It was the first night I refereed, and I had reffed a singles match earlier, but Richard got knocked down in the main event, and I had to be drug out, and Steve had to come grab me and pull me out and throw me into the ring to get me going, you know, and I got into the ring, and it was 90 miles a minute. You know, Richard's on the ground. I get thrown in the ring. Don't know what's going on, but there's Kyle covering Steve Anthony. And I had to run, you know, I had to hop over there real quick and start doing the job. You know, I had to be thinking, I had to be quick. Just the fact that Steve was there and all that I'd seen him do before, I was way more comfortable than I probably should have been even in that moment. I mean, it just, you know, I knew he wasn't going to steer me wrong. And in the end, I made the wrong decision and didn't see a foreign object that was used in the ring. But luckily at that point, Mr. Richard White had recovered enough to say, you know, there was a foreign object in the ring. So
Wonder, are we able to hear you yet, Steve?
I don't know. Can you hear me?
Okay, give us 1 second.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, hang on 1 second.
we're going to get this going.
Sure.
I don't know what's going on.
All right.
All right. Well, I was just talking about the time I debuted at World League Wrestling and how you kind of carried me through the main event stuff that I had to do. And, you know, they were asking about my favorite matches, and you're in a lot of them too. Like, I got to ref your return to World League, and I still can't hear him. So,
I'm not talking. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Sort of.
Well, that's good.
How's everybody else hearing
Is there a
online?
lag?
Yeah,
Is there
a
a
little bit.
lag on my end? Or no?
Yeah, a little bit. Hang on 1 second.
So we're having a
Let me
lot
take
of
you off
technical
Bluetooth. I'll
gift.
just do a regular phone. Can you hear me
I
better
don't-
now?
Oh, we hear you through the speaker, just not through our headphones, so
We'll
we
just
don't
do it
know if
this
it's
way.
going live.
That's fine. We'll do it this way.
I
Anyhow,
didn't catch that. You
yeah.
were breaking up.
Anyhow, it's good to have you on the show. Let's go back to the early Steve. Let's talk about what made you want to become a wrestler? What got you into wrestling?
Can you hear me better?
Yeah, you're fine.
Okay.
Great. So I was saying, take us back to the early days. What got you into wrestling? What made you want to become a wrestler?
The early days, man, we are going back.
Yeah.
You know, so I grew up watching wrestling. Actually, when I was probably about, I don't know, 8 or 9 years old, a friend of mine actually turned me on to WWF at the time. It was right around WrestleMania 3, and I'd never been exposed to wrestling before that, but I was just caught from that moment on. And I was a fan. You know, I saw a little bit of everything because my dad was in the military, so we moved around a little bit. So I saw a little bit of everything. But as I got older, my interest started waning until ECW started up. And I was a teenager in Virginia Beach, Virginia. And ECW kind of put the fire back in me for wrestling. You know, I don't know if people out there listening realize that early 90s to mid 90s WWF wrestling was really cartoonish. You know, they had a lot of characters that were aimed more so at little kids, and it was kind of like I was outgrowing that stuff. And so that I really think that's why I was losing interest in it. And ECW broke onto the scene, and they were doing stuff that hadn't been seen on definitely a national level, but in a regional sense, it was stuff that was groundbreaking, and that's really what lit my fire, rejuvenated the fire in me, I guess, to be a fan of the sport. And as I got older, I kept thinking, you know, it was in the back of my mind, you know, I've always been athletic, and it was just something that, as I was approaching 20, I was like, you know what, if I'm going to do this, if I'm ever going to do this, I need to do it now, because I don't want to look back one day and say, man, I should have tried that, because as you get older, the harder it's going to be to break into it. So I would say that really, more so than anything, was the impetus for me getting into wrestling, was just wanting to give it a shot, because I had the confidence in myself to be able to do just as well as anybody that was on TV. And, you know, I never made it to TV. I never made it to WWF or WCW or any of the national brands, but went to Japan and did some stuff over there. So in my own mind, I can at least validate that my opinion of myself, what I was capable of doing, was very true. So that's kind of how I had the I don't know, that's kind of what got me involved in wanting to get into the sport, if you will.
You say that you never made it to the WWE and all, but didn't you do some matches like on Heat?
Oh yeah, I did. So I went to, I don't know, a dozen, 14, 15 different tapings, different sets of tapings, and I made like 6 or 7 televised matches for them that were enhancement matches, essentially. And I guess a feather in my cap, you know, Ricky Steamboat was an agent for WWE for a little while there. And when I first started out, it's probably around 01, 02 time frame. Me and Harley and BJ, and there may have been 1 or 2 other guys, went to a camp with Les Thatcher. Les Thatcher and Harley were hosting the camp, but Ricky Steamboat was also involved in it. And from that point on, anytime I saw Steamboat, he remembered me. You know, it didn't matter if Harley brought him in for something or if I was catching him at one of the tapings. He always remembered me. Mm-hmm. And a feather in my cap, you know, we were at the tapings one day and we're down by ringside. And after they got done telling all the enhancement talent guys that were there, all the extras, you know, we may have 1 or 2 matches. We're not sure yet. You know, they get done telling us this, and just as soon as they got done telling us, you know, Steamboat grabs me by the arm and says, "Hey, how would you like to work tonight?" And I said, "Sure." So, yeah, feather in my cap, and, you know, guys that recognize me and guys that, you know, have helped me along the way. You know, it's just, I've done some stuff. I've done more than what a lot of guys will out there, and quite honestly, a lot of that was due to Harley and his name, but also my ability to be able to work and have good matches.
Well, that brings us back to World League Wrestling. Number one, you're known around this area for being a worker, and
right.
I guess that maybe that all goes back to the training. So you actually take us back to your training days at with Harley.
I
know.
Fortunate.
And listen, I've heard some of your stories myself, but these people haven't, and some of these stories are absolutely they're out there. So,
well, let's see what we can stir up here.
Well, first of all, what was it like? What was it like walking up to Harley in his school and going, "Okay, I'm Clay," you know, mold.
The first thing, so I didn't see Harley probably for the first day or two that I trained. And I take that back. He did come out when I was doing my tryout. And when I was doing my tryout, I was in there with a couple of guys. Tim Warcloud, who was a wrestler for WLW for a little while there. He was there. JT, I can't remember his last name, but he was a ring announcer for a little while. I don't remember who all was there. There was 4 guys there, and I was just blowing past all of them in the cardio. You know, I wasn't dumb. I knew what it was going to take. You know, I did some homework prior to signing up for a wrestling school. You know, once I realized I was going to go to a wrestling school, I did some homework and I started doing some training before day one. So I came in there and I was just blowing everybody else out of the water as far as cardio goes. And I remember Harley coming out and sitting down and just watching for a little while. And I was just mesmerized that's Harley Race, you know. I'm just sitting there and Harley Race is watching me do cardio. And I was just blown away. And at that point in time, I hadn't even introduced myself to him. Or, you know, he was just sitting there watching. And I thought that was just the coolest thing. As far as the early days of training go, Harley had just had back surgery when I started. And so he was wearing a back brace for quite a while, probably 5 or 6 months, I would say. Mm-hmm. But he had this back brace on. As soon as he got his back brace taken off, every now and again he would get in the ring with us and he would show us stuff. You know, he wouldn't actually physically be doing the stuff, but like I remember Trevor picking me up for a power bomb one time, and Harley sitting there. This is what you need to do. This is how you do it. You know, he's walking us through step by step. This is how it is. You know, this is how you do it safely. If you want to hurt the guy, do this. You know, it's just the stuff that other guys didn't get to see. I remember him showing me how to throw a punch, and to this day, I still can't really throw a good punch. But Harley was practicing punches on me, and I was like, "This is freaking awesome." You know, that's the stuff that guys don't see nowadays. But I also had to drive. You know, I wanted to make it, and I was pushing myself against other guys that were training at the time. There was another guy who wrestled as Deputy Dell. His name was Dell Heiser, Deputy Dell. And he had started a little bit before I did. And Malaya Hisaka was helping to run training, but Malaya was always fawning over, oh, Dell's going to be so great, Dell this, Dell that. And it always, there was a jealousy factor going on. I ain't going to lie. All I ever heard about was Dell. It wasn't ever, oh, you're doing great or anything like that. And so I compared myself to Dell, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to be better than Dell. And I'm going to be better than this guy and that guy and the next guy and every guy that comes through here. So I pushed myself to get better. I went to training at least 5 days a week, and if they were doing training on a Saturday or Sunday, I was there too. So I know for a fact there were days that I was there 7 days, or weeks that I was there 7 days a week, but it was also a different time period where one of the guys that was referee, Skippy Johnson, actually lived above the wrestling school. So if we wanted to come in and train, you just let Skippy know, hey, you're going to be around to do some training at this time, and if it worked for him, yeah, come on in, man, we'll do something. So that aspect of it was awesome, you know. And at that point in time, Harley was in the office all the time too. So if he was in the office and nobody else was around, but you wanted him to watch you do some bumps or something, he'd come out there and watch you do some bumps, you know. If you wanted to sit down and talk psychology with Harley, he'd sit there and talk psychology with you. You know, it's the kind of stuff like that guys just don't get now. There's not enough guys that have made it in the business on the independent scene anymore because everybody's been snatched up. But there's not enough guys on the independent scene to pass this information along to other guys. You know, I try my best when I'm around other guys to pass on any information I can to them. But I can only tell them so much stuff until they have to start realizing stuff for themselves or start incorporating what I'm telling them. And it's just a different game now than it was 20 years ago when I started.
Okay. Sarge was asking that what match when you were growing up watching stands the test of time most to you and says the most to you about this is the way a match should be?
Oh, what match?
Leave it to Sarge,
you know
right?
what? I don't like watching the current product. I can't watch WWE TV right now. I haven't watched them in 8 years, 9 years probably.
Well, I mean, I suppose it would be like. I suppose it'd be like what match stands out to you the most from when you were young, saying, "Wow, this is it."
Right, and that's kind of what I'm getting at here.
I
can't watch that stuff. Well, the current stuff, I can't watch it, but I will sit down and pop in a DVD. You know, like I watched Bret Hart, the WWE DVD that they did on Bret Hart. I don't remember the name of it, but 3-disc set, and I could sit there and watch Bret Hart matches all day long. I love Bret Hart. I thought he was a great worker. Everything he did looked believable in the ring. But matches that stand the test of time, anything with Kurt Hennig and Bret Hart, gold. I love that stuff. I think Kurt Hennig was a fantastic worker. So anything with him, I think it's great. Dynamite Kid stuff. I could sit there and watch Dynamite Kid matches all day long too.
Yeah.
Love Dynamite Kid. What other stuff? Jake Roberts, man. I love watching Jake Roberts.
Talk about ring psychology and how to tell a story. Jake Roberts.
Absolutely. And that's stuff that's lost on guys nowadays. Don't get me wrong. It's hard being in that ring. If you aren't in that ring enough practicing to know how to work a match, you get lost in there pretty damn quick. And then it breaks down to you just beating on the other guy until he stops you and starts beating on you, and then nothing makes sense after 3 minutes, you know? But watching that old stuff like that, I can watch that stuff all day long. Randy Savage, I just watched the Randy Savage DVD. It's probably been a couple months ago now, but love all of Randy Savage's old stuff. He was a fabulous worker too. There's a lot of stuff that I think stands the test of time. Flair Steamboat matches, man, it doesn't get any better than watching Flair Steamboat. You know, the older stuff, great stuff. Rick Rude, I thought Rick Rude was great.
Kurt Hennig.
Yeah, definitely Kurt. Yeah, Kurt's one of my top 5, hands down.
Austin Mulatalo wants to know, what's the favorite match you've wrestled? Right, that's tough.
I don't know if I could pin that down to just a single match. Me and Trevor Murdoch, Trevor Rhodes, we had some great matches. Man, I don't know if I could pick just one. I love working Steve Anthony. Steve Anthony was an awesome worker. Tag team matches, me and Matt Murphy had some great tag team matches against different opponents. Trevor and Wade, Trevor and Bull, Wade and Bull. Man, just over the years, there have been so many great tag team matches. You know, me and Ace teaming against those same guys. You know, that group of guys right there, we pushed each other. You know, we tried to one-up each other in the ring. We tried to make each other look good, but we tried to look better than the guy we was working with at the same time, because at the end of the night, we had to look at that guy and say, man, I screwed this up, or I screwed that up, or man, this looked really good. So we were always trying to one-up each other, and I really think that's how we got better, not necessarily getting the feedback from Harley or from a referee or from anybody else. We're getting that feedback from ourselves in the tag matches. You know, at the end of the night when we was going over stuff, man, this was awesome. This really, the fans really love this spot. You know, that type of stuff. That's what really pushed us. But as far as getting just one match, man, that's hard, because you can have. I've had matches with Buff Bagwell where we hardly did nothing, and they were so over just because of the work that we did in the matches. But then there's matches I've gone out there and I've taken 100 bumps, and at the end of the match, I thought it was great too. There's just different matches you can have and different perspectives. But as far as singling it just to one match, man, I'd have to really sit down and think about it. But there's just too many.
You've been a two-time heavyweight champion at World League Wrestling, correct?
Correct.
Now, and here's a number that I don't know if most people realize, but you can brag, a 10-time World League Wrestling Tag Team Champion.
Man, that wouldn't surprise me if it was more than that, but yeah, easily.
The latest, of course, was with the latest couple was with Brandon Espinosa.
Yep. Sure.
In which culminated, you guys kind of didn't see eye to eye, had a little difference of opinion.
This is a sore subject.
It's okay,
and my head still hurts.
That's okay. It's a podcast. I can bring this stuff up. It's okay. See, and then recently you returned to where you were gone for quite a while there, and you recently returned to World League Wrestling. Showing up at one of the house events there in Troy at the arena, in which you came in and saved Espy.
Well, the bottom line is the first run Brandon Espinosa and I had as a tag team, we didn't see eye to eye. We were it was happenstance that we ended up teaming together, and it just so happened that we won the titles when we teamed, even though we didn't see eye to eye. And the whole time that we were teaming, there was a lot of miscommunication, a lot of confusion between the two of us. Who's doing what? Where are we doing it? Where are we going? How are we doing it? There was just a lot of confusion. He wanted to do his thing. I wanted to do my thing. There's a little bit of ego involved on both sides. That kind of stuff happens.
Sure.
I was gone for a while. I ended up having neck surgery. The time frame that I was gone, towards the end of that, Espinosa had some matches, and in the process of him having some matches, he was getting blindsided and attacked from behind, and he was looking for somebody to have his back. And he called me up one day and said, "Steve, I know we didn't see eye to eye, but this is what's going on, and I know that if I need somebody to have my back, that you'll be the guy to do it." And we talked it out. We hashed things out a little bit over the phone, and we got to where we was on the same page. And so the night that I made my return, once again, the way the match was going, Jaden Roller and his tag team partners thought they were going to have their way with Brandon Espinosa, and I wasn't having it. So I made my return, and I let them know that, hey, Superstar Steve's back.
We were all glad to see it. I mean, they were kind of more running rampant over everybody, and you showed up.
You got a pretty good pop when that hood came down and everybody saw it was you.
Well, Jaden Roller and Austin Cravens, they both they have a little bit of an ego going, and don't get me wrong, I've been there myself before. The problem is their ego has them thinking that they are the best, when in fact they are not the best. And so I'm going to have to show them, and Brandon's going to have to show them, hey, we're going to knock you back down to reality, buddy. We're going to pull that balloon back in a little bit and show you who the best really is.
How's you came back and you saw our new Young Lions division and some of the guys that debuted, and I believe Moses the Deliverer actually debuted against you. Is that? I believe so. That was his debut match, I think.
That is correct. Yep.
What's your feelings on our Young Lions? What you think about those kids?
Impressive. When I debuted 20 years ago, man, it's a little rough saying that, but when I debuted 20 years ago, I had only trained for 2.5 months before I made my debut. I made a fast debut, and at that point in time with the roster that Harley had, even with only 2.5 months experience, you could make an argument that I was better than some of the guys that were doing the shows at that point in time. I don't know if I would go so far as to say that, but apparently Harley thought I was far enough along to put on the shows, and so I started after 2.5 months of training. These young lions, these young kids that are out there, they have more than 2.5 months of training, and I was impressed. After my first match, my thoughts were, it was all right. Definitely room for improvement, and I'm sure these kids think the same thing. But at the same time, they're doing things that I wasn't doing at that point in time. They're getting in there and they're wrestling each other. They had the Young Lions tournament, and they're training with each other in the training. But I guarantee you, those kids are doing the same thing that I was doing with Matt Murphy and Trevor Murdoch and Bull Schmidt and Wade Chisholm back in the day. We're pushing each other, and that's what those kids are doing today, and that's what's going to make them even better than what they are. That's what's going to push them to get better. And once they get better, they're going to start wrestling guys that are better than them to get even better than what they are at that point. And that's what you got to do.
I think one of the most amazing things was just to watch them in the back lift each other up. Like, they're always like on each other. Man, great. Keep going. Don't stop. Keep going. They're on each other. They're like it's a very supportive locker room.
I would agree. I would definitely agree. And that's going to do more for the morale of the guys and the roster that's there. They're not having to fight each other they're not backstabbing each other. They're not worried about somebody stabbing them in the back to try to get ahead of them. They're all pushing each other, and that's what they have to do. The roster has to work as a unit if the whole product is going to survive and thrive and get better.
I'll give Moses some credit, though. He took several of those chops. And he took it like a man.
Now, I don't think he was quite ready for what he got. I think I only chopped him twice, but I don't think he was quite expecting the force with which he felt him.
Right. Sarge just asked what's some of the moments that still give you goosebumps when you watch it again, like, stuff you've done or.
Honestly, I don't go back and watch a lot of my stuff anymore. I used to record every one of my matches, and I'd go back and watch them just to try to improve myself that way. As far as stuff I've done, I don't know if there's anything that I've done that gives me goosebumps going back and watching it, or even hearing somebody else talk about it. There's plenty of guys that are starting out in the business, not just in WLW, but just in Missouri in general, that when I'm on a show with them and they start talking about how they used to watch me when they were kids, which makes me feel old too.
Right.
But just getting out there and hearing these other guys going, man, when I was a teenager, I'd come to the shows and watch you wrestle this guy and watch you wrestle that guy, and oh man, that was really good stuff. That's what made me want to become a wrestler, and that stuff gives me goosebumps, man. But going back and watching my matches, like, I can tell when I'm having the match if it's something that I would be interested in going back and watching, or if it's just another match to me. And I don't want to knock the talent level in Missouri, but the talent level now is at a point that's lower, I believe, than it was 15 years ago. And like I said, I'm not trying to knock the talent that's out there, but these guys are just getting started. They've got big things ahead of them. But in another 5 years, the guys that are out there now, if they're busting butt to get better, look out, because there's going to be some really, really good stuff in another 3, 4, 5 years come out of Missouri.
Yeah, and quite a bit of it's coming right out of the Harley Race Wrestling Academy, because, man,
Absolutely.
These guys, I mean, you got to take a look at guys, even Sean Patrick, junior heavyweight champion and a National Guardsman.
Yes.
Who right now is actually doing his duty. if he gets a chance to listen to this, come back home safe, bud. We'll see when you get here. But you look at guys like that and you think in 2 to 3 years, the wrestling business here is going to be fantastic with guys like that. Moses.
The future looks very bright. Yes.
Yeah,
the thing
Raheem.
that impresses me the most is they're hungry for every part. They want to learn, they want to know, and they want to do. And that's important.
I agree.
You know, you can't grab something you ain't reaching
several
for.
Groups. I wrestled for several groups in Missouri, and the WLW, the young guys coming out of the training in WLW are heads above anybody else in Missouri right now. I can tell you that for sure.
Another question that came in. Austin Mulatalo he says that he's going to be attending the Harley Race Wrestling Academy here pretty soon, and he wants to know what's some good words of advice that you could have for him or anyone going in.
Good words of advice. Train. Do some cardiovascular exercises before you ever step foot in that wrestling ring or before you ever step foot in those doors. When I first started training, I worked construction at the time, and every day after I get off work, I'd come home and I'd go run. And it didn't matter if it was 100 degrees outside or if it was 40 degrees outside. I'd come home every day and I'd go for a run. And I never knew how far I was running for the first several months. But then one day I wanted to know, so I got in my truck and I drove to the point that I was running to, because it was the same path every day. But I drove the whole route, and it was roughly 1.8 miles round trip. And so doing that in the height of summer when it's 100 degrees outside and there's 80%, 90% humidity, that will help you so much more than anything else. The ring cardio is a whole different beast than that, but that will at least get your lungs in the conditioning that you need to be once you get into the wrestling ring. Hindu squats, do plenty of Hindu squats. Start with 50 at a time, and your legs will be sore. Do 50 one day, next day do 50, next day do 50. Maybe skip a day, let your legs heal up a little bit, but then do 75 on the 4th or 5th day. Work it up so that you're doing 150 squats, 200 squats at a time. That will keep your legs in the shape or give your legs the muscles they need to endure through everything. When I was in Japan, Too Cold Scorpio took me under his wing, and he made sure I knew that if you don't have any legs, you ain't got nothing. If you lose your legs, you're done. You're a fish out of water at that point in time. If you have rubber legs, you get in the ring, they wear you out. You have rubber legs, you're of no use to anybody at that point in time. So he made sure that I knew, keep your legs underneath of you, do whatever you got to do to get your cardio up and to have the muscle in your leg to be able to work whatever you were working. So those two things would be my biggest piece of advice to them.
All right. What would be the most give us a Harley story that made the most impact on you as a wrestler?
Ooh. That's a tough one. That's a tough on the spot one. I don't know. So more so than anything, I would just hang out with Harley. I wouldn't ask him a whole lot of particular questions. If I was reading news and I come across the name of somebody, I would bring it up to Harley. Hey, Harley, what'd you think of this guy? What'd you think of Bruno Sammartino? And he'd just sit there and he'd tell me stories about Bruno. Harley been everywhere, done everything. So I wanted to hear the stories, man. That's what I wanted to hear. It wasn't so much of psychology of matches or how to incorporate psychology of the matches. That stuff was going to come with time, and that aspect of it was going to be something that Harley would tell us after he watched us work a match if he needed to tell us something. So I don't know if there is anything that directly that impacted me the most. But just hanging out with Harley, and even outside of the school, going on the lake with him and seeing everybody that knew him, not personally knew him, but everybody knew who Harley Race was. Going out to Party Cove and putting around Party Cove and everybody shouting, Harley, Harley. Those were the days, man. Those were the days. Sitting down and getting drunk with Harley. How many people could say they sat in a bar and got so drunk with Harley that they could barely walk, man? There was a couple of times where I got so drunk at his condo that I laid down in bed and the room was spinning, and I'd never get that drunk. But with Harley, you did. If Harley was drinking, by God, you were. Those are the times that impacted me more than anything.
Was he when you were going through training in the early days? Was he a fan of the current product of that time?
I think he realized. So when Harley made his name, he was kind of a pioneer of the time as well, because he was doing things in the ring that nobody else was doing.
Right.
And he heard it from the older generation at the time. You're doing too much. Slow down, And that's exactly what we were doing when we started out. And the ironic part was I don't think he ever told us we were doing too much. I think he realized that the product was evolving, and that in order for the product to evolve, that's what needed to happen. Harley was a fan of wrestling, and whether, of course there's plenty of crap, garbage wrestling out there that he did not like whatsoever. But as far as actual wrestling, he realizes the product needs to evolve, and in order to draw in more fans, that's what has to happen. So he was a fan of the newer stuff. Now, to what extent, I really couldn't tell you, but he would sit down there. He would sit down and watch wrestling. I knew for a fact that he watched Monday Night Raw every week. And when they were having the wrestling wars, he was flipping back and forth between Raw and Nitro just like everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, he was definitely a fan of the newer stuff. But, the last 10 years or so, I'm not sure how much wrestling he actually watched outside of what he saw at the shows. But he was definitely a fan of that stuff.
Well, being that you're basically a World League wrestler, you're a WLW OG, and what's it like for you to see the progression of WLW, how WLW is coming back, especially things like what we're able to do with our social media, what we're where we're at with our TV now. Over the last few years, what's that feel like to you to look at that and go, wow?
It's worlds ahead of whatever. So BJ, which was Harley's wife before he was with Rose, BJ died in 2009, I believe. But this is probably what BJ's vision was, if I were to give a good guess. She wanted the social media presence. She wanted some kind of TV. But I don't think she had the ability to make it happen. And seeing where it is now, I'm pretty sure that's exactly what she would have wanted it to be. And seeing the work that Leland Race has put in, that you've put in, that everybody's put into it, I think it's awesome. I think it makes WLW stand out above every independent group in the Midwest.
I can tell you, and I've sat down and talked to Leland about this, and it's been, I think we can honestly say this has been a 100% complete team effort, from the parking lot guy to the office, all the way from, through the kids coming through training, the current superstars, the referees, production teams, social media teams, and everything. It has been I think we can honestly say it's been 100% a team effort.
Oh yeah.
And it needs to be in order to get the most. I don't want to say attention. In order to draw the most viewers, to have the biggest number of eyes watching you, you've got to get that word out there, and it takes the whole team to make it happen.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So Austin had one final question. He wants to know what's next for Superstar Steve.
What's next for Superstar Steve? Well, if you was at the last WLW show, you saw me make my return, and you saw me lay out Jaden Roller, and you saw me lay out Austin Cravens, and those guys, that's unfinished business. You know, Austin, he put my neck in that chair and threw me into the ring post and caused some damage, which caused me to have surgery. So there's some unfinished business there. When something like that happens, you tend to get a little ticked off, and it tends to light a fire under you. And
Got a little payback coming, huh?
He's gonna find out exactly how hot that fire has gotten, because I haven't forgotten, and I can tell you right now, I'm coming.
Well, good. I'm glad to hear that.
Absolutely.
Last minute words of wisdom.
Words of wisdom.
Words of wisdom.
I don't know who's the wisdom directed at.
From just to the world.
Just to the world. Anything in general?
Anything in general. What's on Superstar Steve's mind?
What's on Steve's mind? I don't know if there really is anything. I can tell you something though. Yeah, I don't do a lot of social media. I try to stay off of social media. If I do social media, I'm not on there very long because there's so much negativity in this world. A very good quote is, "Be the change that you want to see in this world." If you don't like the way things are going, you yourself make this world a better place. Racial tensions are higher than they've ever been, and there's no reason for it. We're all the same. We're one equal playing field. Everybody's on the same team, and it's team human race. So let's go out there and show the world how great the human race is.
It's great. I agree 100%, man.
That works for me. I like
Absolutely.
it. So are we going to will we see, maybe see you and SB back in the tag team division, maybe going for those titles again?
It's possible. Definitely can't rule it out. You know, like I said, we hashed out some stuff on the phone, and we were on the same page. I told him I'd have his back as long as we were on the same page. And if it gets to the point where I don't think we're on the same page, then we'll have to have a conversation again and either get back on the same page or go our own separate ways. But I really think this could be the beginning of something good again. Yeah,
you guys were when you guys actually worked together. You guys are a very formidable team.
Absolutely. He's a really good wrestler. I have a lot of respect for him. He's done some stuff in this business. He wants to make it in this business, and I can get behind that. And if I have somebody that has that drive that is helping push me at the same time, then there's nobody that's going to stand in our way.
What about the World Heavyweight Championship? What about Derek Stone?
I wouldn't rule it out by any means, but I have always, from day one, you know, when I started, I was a tag team wrestler, and I have always liked tag team wrestling. I've always liked the psychology behind it. Not saying I wouldn't set my sights on Derek Stone, but at the same time, it's not something that is at the top of the plate just yet.
Yeah, but if you look at the playing field, okay, in front of you is a team, the Empire, where you got Derek Stone, John Webb,
and Camaro
Jackson. With those three guys, you're bound to cross paths during this whole thing in some way, somehow, some fashion.
Hey, it's quite possible, and I can guarantee you I'm not backing down from anybody, and I don't think Brandon Espinosa is going to be backing down from anybody either. If our paths cross, we're going out there and we're going to do everything we can to win every match that we can. So if our paths cross, they better be ready to bring their A game, because we're going to be bringing ours.
How you liking this new attitude, Aspie?
It's a breath of fresh air, to be honest with you. It's something I haven't seen from him before, and I'm glad it's there. I really am.
Well, Steve, we really appreciate you coming on the show today. It's been great catching up with you, and hopefully, as we were talking earlier, it looks like we're going to get back to training here within the next few weeks.
Awesome.
And hopefully, if things will lighten up, we can get back to doing some shows. And
I'm ready.
Oh, I think everybody, the entire roster's ready. Everybody's been itching. We sit in that Facebook chat with everybody, and it's okay. Put it this way: it is. I'm going to break. This is breaking. It's been. I can tell. Jaden Roller is so bored at home that he's on TikTok.
Breaking news! Look out, everybody!
Right. So that tells you just how everybody's ready to get back to it. Anyhow, Steve, thanks, man.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
I appreciate it. Anytime you want me on the show, just let me know. More than happy to do it.
I will make requests with the front office.
Perfect.
All right, Steve. Thanks, bud. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
All right. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Cool. Superstar Steve. Yeah.
It was fun. We just keep having these shows where they're gentlemen who are been around. They know what they're talking about. They can give good advice to everybody. I feel like it's hard for anybody to answer a what's best question. What was your favorite? I mean,
those are tough questions. How can you?
It's hard.
That's like saying which child is your favorite one.
Okay.
I've met your children. I have a favorite too. And that's
Ricky
okay.
Steamboat and Randy Savage at WrestleMania. That was really great match for me. And Ric Flair, Terry Funk.
Ric Flair, Terry Funk. See, I enjoy the. We have a very nice library at World League Wrestling, and getting to see the old stuff with Harley in Japan, with Baba and some of those guys, just out of this world. Great matches. Old school, but
the Harley race Ric Flair angle for Starrcade was probably one of the first kind of programs in wrestling that I was able to see all the way through to the end and see the story.
Are you telling me you like that better than what was it, Ice Castle of Fear, or what was?
Well, everything's got its place, man. It was great in its own way, kind of like the Shockmaster. Okay. It's great in its own way.
All right. If you insist. Anyways, I don't know what's up next week. I can't announce it. I don't know. But as soon as we know, you'll know, and it'll be all across our Facebook page. So stay tuned to that so that you can keep up with what's happening with World League Wrestling. And as we move forward, again, I want to thank our sponsors, Jim Chineri Ford, Jim Chineri Chevy, Impact Digital Designs, CT Harrison Business Solutions, and Traveling East Productions, as well as the front office for giving us permission to do this podcast and allowing us to be here. It's been an honor.
Yeah,
special thank you. And you know what? Especially to the fans. The
right.
fans of World League Wrestling. You're like the best.
Right. They're the same as the people who work there, man. They're dedicated. They know what they like. And, we all like World League Wrestling. So, it's always great to do this. Next week, no matter who it is, it's going to be a great interview. It's going to be fun. I mean, it's always going to be fun.
Well, I'm CT Harrison.
And I'm Martin Kadish.
And it's been a pleasure. And we will see you next Sunday right here, 4 o'clock, Central Standard Time.
For WLW Amplify.
I couldn't said it better myself. We love you, and there ain't a damn thing you can do about it. We'll see you next time.
Bye.